Okay, so welcome to Women in Education, the podcast that celebrates and amplifies the voices of women shaping the future of learning. I am one of your hosts. My name is Esther, and we've also got,
I'm Jodie, and we're both members of Coventry National Education Union, NEU for short.
and on each episode, we will explore the unique experiences, challenges, and successes of women working across the education sector, whether they are in the classroom or advocating for change on a national level. Today, we are honored to welcome Sarah Kilpatrick, the current president of the National Education Union. Sarah is not only a passionate educator and also a powerful advocate for equality and fairness in education. As one of the leaders of the largest education union in Europe, she is uniquely positioned to shine a light on the systematic and day-to-day challenges women face in education. Challenges like navigating leadership barriers, fighting for fair representation, and balancing the personal with the professional.
And Sarah's dedication to creating a better future for educators and students alike is truly inspiring. And I know that her insights will leave you feeling both informed and empowered, as they do every time I speak to her. So settle in, join us now for an important conversation with Sarah, and we're going to discuss the challenges and the opportunities for women in education today. So let's dive in.
Okay, Sarah, welcome to the show. We are so honored to have you here. So to start off with, we just want to kind of like ask you, you are the national president of the NEU, earlier than expected. So how has it been for you so far, and what are you looking forward to over the coming year?
Well, yeah, you're right. It did come earlier than expected. So I wasn't supposed to be in post until September. So I I had to sort of negotiate an earlier secondment from work. But it's been a bit of a whirlwind so far. And I mean the introduction that you've both just given me is sort of indicative of how it's felt a lot of the time because people sort of say, "Oh, this is a huge role, this is a really important job," and I still feel like, you know, not right. I'm not saying I'm ill-equipped for it. I don't mean that. I just there's something about being a woman in leadership that is really difficult, and it means that you have to own a position of leadership that a lot of the time you feel like you should apologize for instead. And so I I heard all of the wonderful things that you both said and just sort of blushed and was like, oh my goodness, they can't really be talking about me. It's something that I'm working on. I'm really working on not apologizing for taking this position. And that's I I might be wrong, but I don't think that's anything that one of our male colleagues would consider. I don't think that any man would apologize for taking a position of leadership. And it has been something that has preoccupied my thoughts an awful lot since last October when Phil told me that he was going to potentially not be president anymore and would I be able to step up early. And then since sort of late October, early November time when I knew it was happening, um, I've I've been trying to get to a point where I think, yeah, no, you have earned this, you have worked for this, you are capable of doing this. So that's that's been my main focus so far is just sort of stopping apologizing for it. So yeah, I promise I'll get there.
I guess that shows that the imposter syndrome is very real, isn't it, amongst women?
Absolutely.
Mm, yeah, and women in leadership, absolutely. Which kind of leads me on to the next question, really. So we are lucky in the sense that the past few years the union has been led by some exceptional women presidents, hasn't it? And expand a little bit, if you don't mind, on why you think it's so important that we do platform women educators in such a way.
Well, I mean, if you look at the NEU's membership, you're looking at least 76% women members in our union. And the fact that, we're still commenting on women in leadership, it's testament to the position that we find ourselves in, where we don't feel like it's a position that naturally comes to us, because it's worth remarking on. But you look at last year when we had Emma Rose, who was just the most phenomenal example of leadership, so caring, so compassionate, so knowledgeable, and she led our union with such grace and such care. And I just, and I think many of us, especially if you attended conference last year, which she chaired brilliantly, many of us are aware of the personal issues that she was going through. She'd lost both of her parents, and she just got her head down and got through it and kept leading us with just such just phenomenal leadership. And I'm not sure it's something that she's aware of, how wonderful a job she did. I'm not sure she appreciates how much people really were grateful for the leadership that she showed throughout her presidential year. She was a real incredibly difficult example to live up to, I have to say. She really, really set the bar high. I'm sort of dreading conference because I have to live up to what she did last year. So yeah, we've got a really strong track record of phenomenal women leaders, and I'm really proud now to count myself amongst them, and I just hope that I can live up to the standard that they've set.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, I think you'll be absolutely amazing, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you at conference.
Oh no.
I'm looking forward to seeing if you have a football scarf as well, like Emma did. See, Emma had a
Yeah.
Coventry City scarf, so she was in good company with us.
Well, listen, Newcastle United are currently playing, and I don't think it's going well. So
Oh dear.
maybe not. But yeah, my team is Newcastle, so yeah, maybe.
Okay, so Sarah, I am quite new to education, and I'm also, new to the union in a way, but I've kind of like gotten really involved in it. I love everything to do with it. So I just wanted to find out a little bit about your career in education so far, in school and also as part of the union.
Yeah, well, I trained in 2006 and started teaching before I'd even finished my PGC. To be honest, I had a job in a local secondary school. So I'm an art teacher, secondary art teacher, but I've done a lot of work with primary schools, especially recently. Um, my passion is access to the arts for all children. I'm from a very working class background in the Northeast, and the children that I've worked with throughout the majority of my career are from a very similar background to mine, very working class, very sort of, I'm not going to say that they're not aspirational, they're not ambitious. What I mean is the aspirations and ambitions that they would have been purposefully squashed by successive governments who really don't want to see disadvantaged children do well. Um, so I have spent a lot of my career so far working in communities very like the one that I grew up in. And it's been a real driving force for me for the sort of political activism that I've been involved with. So I was a political activist before I was a teacher, before I became a trade unionist. I remember my uni professors going out on strike, and I went out on strike with them, and they shut down our university, and I think it was to do with their pensions, but it was a very early taste. I was about 18. It's a very early taste of going out on a march and shutting down. So the main shopping street in Newcastle is called Northumberland Street, and that's where all of the big rallies cut through. So you walk down Northumberland Street, and I remember doing that and having to ask them, what is it that made you do this? Like, what drove this decision? And they said, oh, well, we're in a trade union, and the trade union has said that we can take a stand on this point. And it was a real sort of eye opener for me. I grew up in Newcastle in the 80s and early 90s, and the legacy of the miners' strike was, really prevalent. And yeah, I mean, it's the culture I've been brought up in, I guess. But yeah, the schools I've worked in have been mostly quite disadvantaged schools in deprived areas, and the children that I've worked with are very similar to the child I was at that time. So it was sort of wanting to replicate the opportunities that I was afforded. That's been sort of my driver as a political activist.
That's amazing, isn't it? To hear your passion come through like that really is incredible. So from the moment you became a teacher, were you a trade unionist immediately?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, so when I trained, it was back in the days when everything was university based, and
Mm.
the idea that you would be I mean, I think back to 2005, 2006, the idea that it would be training led by academy trusts, in-house training, like that was so far away from where I was. So like the idea that would, I remember the PGCE coordinator, so the woman who led my course, our course leader, Sophie, she said, if there is a change of government, the entire profession will change. And you will see that the entire profession changes because the government will have a different idea about what education should be. And I was like, nah, come on. That can't be true. It can't be true. And then, you know, we got Gove and Gib and the the sort of academization, the forced academization program really kicked into gear then, and everything changed so rapidly and with such devastating consequences. It was awful. But yeah, I was of the generation where all of the unions came in. So the NUT, ATL, and NASUWT, as they were at the time, they all came into the university. They said, you've got to join a union. We don't mind which one you join them all. And
Mm.
so I did. I joined them all. And in the first school that I worked in, the NUT rep was just a really, really strong feminist, just a powerhouse of a woman. And I thought, that's where I want to be. I want to be with you. Wherever you're going, take me with you because you're amazing. So yeah, I signed up because the NUT rep was clearly the sort of role model I wanted.
Wow, incredible to have those women role models so early on as well, isn't it?
Exactly. I think you know what? I've got a bit of a similar story there. So when I went to uni, I think you just get signed up to a union, and
Mm.
I think the first one was NEU, and I just joined into it. But during the strike action and going to strike action and seeing what was happening there, it was like this is where I need to be. So I can absolutely resonate with that.
Yeah, it's empowering, isn't it? I remember during that first strike action, meeting Esther on the train. We were going over to the rally in Birmingham, weren't we? And that's where we met you. And it just shows, doesn't it? Action works. It brings people together and unites us all. Oh, lovely stories.
No, it's so good though, because I mean, one of my one of my latter head teachers said to me after they closed our staff room, she said, well, staff rooms breed discontent, don't they? And so when we had all the strike action and the picket line replaced the staff room, I thought, well, this is perfect. This is a real sort of closing of that circle. I was thrilled. But yeah, the strikes were such a driver of those relationships, weren't they? That they're such a great thing for building our union.
Yeah, they really were. And hopefully that will be happening again soon, won't it?
Yeah, let's hope so.
So obviously you've talked about your history as a teacher and how you got into the NEU. I think as well, what I think is really interesting is the diversity of women in the union and how we're also very different with our different experiences. And for me personally, as a woman who doesn't have children, I am always in awe of anyone who manages to work in education and juggle a family life. I know Esther, you're a mum as well, aren't you? And Sarah, you've got children. So how do you think being a mum
Um,
impacts on the work that we do as educators? How does that feed into your everyday work in education, and how do you manage it all?
Well, it's definitely not easy. And I think the worst thing for me is the guilt, like the the just appalling guilt of having a career that's, taking me into like the lives of other children. And like my kids used to call my students mummy's big children. They're 10 and 7 now, so they've grown out of these cute things that they say. But they used to call my students mummy's big children. And I think that's a testament to how sort of deeply we feel about the students that we work with. We really care about them. We really you know it, you don't leave it in the classroom, do you? When a child has like told you how upset they are because somebody said something horrible at break time, or when a child has revealed something about what's been going on at home, or just because a kid has done something wonderful. As an art teacher, when a child comes in and they've said, oh, I found this new artist and I've got this brilliant idea, and they show you their sketchbook and they've done all of this amazing work just because they were so inspired, you take that home with you. You don't forget it. You don't forget any of these children. So it's hard because it takes up an awful lot of your emotional capacity. So I suppose from a classroom perspective, it's really, really hard. But as an activist as well, you're giving up a lot of your evenings, you're giving up a lot of your weekends. It's currently half term in the Northeast and I'm in London, and I've brought my children with me. So I'm in a little flat. So I was in Parliament yesterday, and I'm doing a all members Zoom tomorrow. Make sure you sign up to the all members Zoom if you haven't already. I'm doing an all members Zoom tomorrow about the pay ballot. We've got a rally outside the DFE about the London strike wave. So like the sort of underfunding of schools and the school closures that we're seeing across London. We're having a lot of strike action across London, and I mean elsewhere in the country as well. It's not a London specific problem. It's just a very immediate problem in London. But I've brought the kids with me. So I'm trying to balance a half-term holiday for them. So we've spent most of the day in the Natural History Museum. But tomorrow, I'm going to be sort of juggling where they go and what they do. Luckily, my partner's a teacher, so he's on holiday as well. He's down with me, so he'll be able to take them somewhere and do something. But I'm traveling an awful lot, and you're away from home a lot, and it is hard. It is really hard. I think the worst thing, like I've said, is the guilt, because you internalize it and it makes it's almost worse than it is in reality, because the reality is they're in school and they're in after school club and they have their tea and they go to bed. They're not really missing me that much. But is that just me trying to convince myself? And actually, it's, I don't know, it is really difficult. And like Esther, you were just before we started the Zoom, like I heard you saying goodnight to the kids and stuff, and I can hear my boys next door watching a show on CBeebies on iPlayer. And I heard one of them saying, like, oh, where's Mammy? Where is Mammy in there? Where is she? Like the worry that they're going to come in and sort of disrupt our recording as well. So it's, even if you're at home and you're doing like online meetings, because I know hybrid meetings are a big sort of driver for engagement of women in the union, but even that's not perfect, is it? Because you've always got half a mind elsewhere, and sometimes it's easier actually to just not be at home and to give yourself wholly to the activism, but you can never cut yourself in half like that.
No, and I think there was a quote from Shonda Rhimes who said that when you see me excelling in one part of my life, you need to understand that I am failing in the other. And it just that is something that I've saved it on my phone and I listen to it because sometimes it can get so overwhelming, so hard knowing that or even having that feeling of thinking, am I doing enough for them? Or am I doing everything in every part? So I do understand.
Hmm.
It's difficult.
I mean, when I was still in the classroom, my eldest is 10 now, I had been head of department and full time, and I was no longer head of department and ended up at 0.6. So you go part time because childcare's so expensive. It's so expensive, and I was going to be something like £20 a week worse off working full time and putting my child in full time nursery than if I went part time and looked after him myself. And obviously, that was my preference. I wanted to look after him myself. So, yeah, I feel like, and I might be wrong, but I feel like it's the women making these decisions and not the
That's what I
men.
was just about to come in with. These are sacrifices that always feel to impact, they seem to impact women more, don't they, because of the way society's made up. But I think both of you as mums need to realize and stop being so harsh on yourself, maybe. Probably easy for me to say, isn't it? But think of the example you're setting to your children as well. That's how I think you've got to flip it like that as well. You're showing that you are really strong women who are working hard for the greater good, for the benefit of others, for a fairer, more decent society. And your children will remember that.
That's lovely, Jodie. You.
Sorry. Should we move on to a different topic?
Yes, let's move on from this one. This is quite a heavy one, isn't it? Um, so what are I mean, I think we've covered some of this one, which is that your biggest challenges facing women in education today, and how do we solve the crisis that we face? We know that when it comes to motherhood stuff, we're working to, we're working through it. But think about everything else, what are some of the things that are facing the biggest challenges we are facing as women today in education?
Yeah, I mean the caring issue is huge, and it's not just children. I was my so quite an unusual situation because my dad died very young. He was only 56, but I was his carer, and he died when I was 27. But I understand that burden of caring for a parent as well. So a lot of women, they get through the child rearing age, and then they end up being a carer for elderly parents as well. So it's almost like a sort of, you come out one side of it and you go straight into another. So that caring thing never really goes away. So that's obviously the caring implications are a burden that fall heavily onto women, rather than men. And that's, it's a societal expectation. It's a patriarchal society we live in. So challenging those expectations is something that we all have to do. And we've got a really privileged position that we can do that with young people as well. We can drive those conversations. If only we had time in the curriculum to do so. But we have other issues as well. So problems in the workplace, such as maternity issues. And I know the union have got some absolutely phenomenal new resources on this, the Maternity Matters resources, award-winning, fantastic resources that the union have put together, led by activists and really driven by really fantastic members of staff like Sandra Bennett in Hamilton House. So Maternity Matters covers things like pregnancy and breastfeeding at work. It covers baby loss, including termination. And there are there are really wonderful policies, not just on maternity issues, but also on menopause and all sorts of things that sort of impact on women members particularly. but they're only as good as the paper they're written on, aren't they? You have to have workplace activism to ensure that they're embedded in your workplace. So have a look at the toolkits that exist. And, if you're not the rep at school, flag them up to the rep, but you don't have to be the rep to approach SLT and say, there's a fantastic model policy here. Would you like to adopt it? That sort of thing. I suppose I really don't want to name any horrific misogynists. We all know, God, it's awful, isn't it? The It's Not Okay toolkit is a really, really powerful resource for whole school, community-wide change in tackling sexism and sexual harassment. I think one of the biggest issues that we're facing, and obviously we're witnessing a really frightening, and I mean, I don't use the word lightly, I genuinely am frightened at the things that we're seeing in the United States, the elections that we're seeing across Europe, the elections that we're seeing, the rhetoric that we're seeing at home here in the UK, the toxicity of far-right ideology is now in the mainstream in politics, and deeply embedded within that is misogyny. Misogyny drives so much of far-right ideology. The idea that women should be in their place, and that women should, that I don't need to list their arguments, they do enough of that. How do we tackle it though, when it's so pervasive and when children have been so damaged by it that they start to buy into it because they think there's a sort of sense in it, a perverted sort of sense of justice for them, that they have had all of these opportunities stolen from them, and maybe this is the person to blame, maybe that group of people are the people to blame. The rise of incel culture and just the absolutely horrific outcomes of misogyny that we've seen just in this country last year, the attack in Southport, and it is devastating seeing this sort of rhetoric take hold, and it's down to all of us to challenge it. But like I referenced before, it's really hard because the time in the school day is so compressed and it's so accountability driven that we have to try and fight back against it on so many fronts, and it is exhausting. It's completely exhausting. And I think, the best thing to do is to be involved in your trade union and to be involved in, politics that look for a better world and that drive for a better world. So, I'm really pleased to be on the left wing. I'm really pleased to be involved in a union movement that is completely driven by social justice and by, trying to make things better for everybody. So yeah, I'm enormously proud of our union, but we've got so much work to do, and we're all so tired. We're so tired. So yeah, it's getting other people involved, I guess, and getting people to see the scale of the problem and commit to tackling it as well. It can't always just be us.
Yeah, it is exhausting, isn't it? And it is shocking how different everything feels compared to the 20 years ago when I started teaching, and how life is very different now for girls and women. And it's frightening thinking of the future, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, I think we've kind of answered more of some of the questions that we had. And I know we're kind of running out of time. So I'm going to squeeze in two questions in one, if you don't mind, Esther. I think you've probably already answered what changes would you like to see for women in the workplace, partly, but if there's anything else you want to add, please do. But again, whether this is one we can answer right now, I don't know. But how do we engage women, particularly younger women, to be politically active when they're teaching or working as support staff in schools as well? How do we do it?
That's a really good question. Because like we've said, they are the majority of the union. They're the majority of our potential activist base. And, for me, it was really easy because all I needed was for somebody to say to me, no, your opinion is worth something. You know, as a working class woman from the Northeast, I wasn't used to being told that I was worth listening to, you know, and that it was such a simple thing to say, could you say that again? Oh, I'm really impressed with what you said. That was, you know, would you like to say that on a bigger platform? Could you speak at this rally? Could you come to this event? Could just build the union, build it in every way you can, talk to women and encourage them to use their voice. Because I'm telling you now, so many of them have spent all of their career, all of their childhood, all of their adulthood being shushed and being told that they shouldn't really take up the space. They shouldn't raise their voice. You know, oh, could you just be a bit quieter, please? Do you have to talk about politics all of the time? That, you know, what an absurd notion that we don't have a voice as equal or as valid as anybody else. You know, there are so many women who feel the way that we feel, but have never been told that their voice is worth hearing. And we need to find them and platform them, you know, build it, succession plan, make sure that the women are involved, make sure that you're bringing in younger women, make sure that you're encouraging them to speak, invite them along to meetings, invite them along to rallies, invite them along to anything that you've got going on. Just get them involved, because I guarantee as soon as they feel secure enough and as soon as they know that they're not going to get shushed, then they if I'm anything to go by, it'll be bloody impossible to shut them up after a while. So yeah, get them involved in any way you possibly can.
I think that's exactly what Jodie is trying to do with me.
Yeah, it is. It actually is. And I think there were some really powerful observations there, Sarah, about how we as women often feel. And it is important that those around us platformers, and not just women, but our male colleagues in the union as well. And it happened to me all those years ago. I've been platformed and found my voice and that confidence. And that's is definitely, we see that spark in Esther, and we definitely have been doing it with you as well, pushing you to the front because you've got so much to do, so much to say, and so much to share. And you're right, Sarah. That's the best way to do it, isn't it?
Definitely,
Oh,
definitely. And there are some excellent brothers in the movement, you know, and I've benefited from, you know, their sort of, I don't know, pushing me as well. But yeah, just bring in the younger women, bring in any women. Just
Yeah. Let's
yeah.
take up more space.
yeah, you're
So,
next, Esther. Come on.
well, to end on a lighter note, Sarah, finally, what is your favorite biscuit?
Oh, look, I am from Northumberland. Well, I'm not really. I live there now. But we're quite close to the border, with Scotland, so I'm gonna go for a shortbread. I like a shortbread.
Same here. I think it's one of the best, isn't it? Jodie, what's your favorite biscuit?
Wow. I'm from a Scottish background, so I am a
Yeah.
shortbread fan as well. Particularly at Christmas when we can all splash out on the Marks and Spencer boxes.
Oh,
But
yes.
Nice.
otherwise, I'm kind of boring. I like a bourbon. I do like a bourbon.
I
Go
mean,
on,
I think
Esther.
for me, shortbread or anything with chocolate on it will do.
Mm,
Yeah.
Have you had those? I think they're from Marxie's, Jodie, so you'll approve. Look, the big square ones that are shortbread and they've got huge chunks of chocolate in them.
no,
There, look.
Try it.
they sound amazing.
It does. I think we need to go and find that, Jodie.
Biscuits are a big focal point, aren't they, for educators? Yeah, it's what brings us to the staff room. So this is important. It's all the hard hitting information here.
Yeah.
Oh, so Sarah, we have finally come to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for joining us on Women in Education, and thank you to all who have tuned in as well. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and found something valuable to take away. Don't forget to share with others and tune in for the next episode. Once again, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, until next time, everyone, keep the fight going. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.